Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cozy Corner. Please make sure you follow, like, and subscribe for more. We are still continuing our Sweet Oblivion series. So I would like to take the opportunity to actually backtrack a little bit and talk about the other character that I have brought into the scene. We've only dated for 6 months, but a lot transpired within the 6 months him and I dated. And I think I need to talk about him in order to make all of this make more sense in regards to how me and Rebel came about and all those things. So I met this guy through my sister boyfriend at the time. She was dating this guy. He had a cousin and the cousin wanted to talk to me. So that was just this whole thing. At first he was really sweet, very considerate. And at that time, I really was, like I said, still in a very vulnerable state. I had just got into high school, exploring what the life could be like, dating and things like that. So this guy in particular was really sweet. At this time, I had turned 18. And I lost my virginity to this guy, and yeah, it turned horrible really quickly. He was physically abusive, over the top abusive. Whenever I would talk to my friends on the phone, which I had a friend, we're just going to call her T for reference. We were best friends actually in high school, and we used to talk all the time. And I was talking to her on the phone one night, and he was around, and he took my phone and threw it up against the wall, and my phone shattered. And he was very, very violent. He did bruise my ribs a couple of times. I did have swollen lip, black eye, that I pretty much hid with makeup. He was very, very abusive, slapping, punching. There was several times where he was forceful with me as far as forcing me into sexual acts, things like that for 6 months. And then I was just completely done. And that's when I met Rebel in that situation. And I actually told Rebel about him when we started dating. And he reassured me that that wouldn't be something that he would do because he don't believe in hitting women and he didn't believe in abuse and things like that. Women should be cherished and women should be protected, things like that. So, of course, naturally, I believed him at that time. And when I decided to date Rebel, Rod still was making his way in the picture. I was receiving threatening phone calls from him talking about, and it was just different numbers, about how he was going to kill Rebel and how if he couldn't have me, no one could, threats like that. And how could I date a loser and you left me? And it would be times he would call me saying that he was going to commit suicide and he was going to overdose, and he will call talking about he's finna go to jail. He don't have anywhere to go. He don't have anybody to depend on. And his situation was different because his dad had got killed by law enforcement, and his mom wasn't really in the picture. She dated, so she kind of put her relationships over her children. And so he was literally on his own majority of the time. And he didn't know what love was. He didn't know how to date. He didn't know what to and what not to do when it came to women at all. He had no real example of that. He didn't have a lot of family. It seemed as though it was just him and his cousin all the time, because you never heard him talk about anything else. And also it seemed like he was kind of jealous of the fact that I had parents and siblings, and we kind of like had a home and things like that, because he didn't have a stable home. And so it seemed like I received a lot of the anger and backlash from him not feeling a lot of that. So that was a lot for me, because you have to think about it. I am trying to regain and rebuild a life after being sick for so long and being in and out the hospital and in and out of treatments. And my first encounter with someone is someone that harms me, and it was pretty bad, and I told my friend, I think at that time I only had one friend I could really trust. And I did tell my friend, and we talked about it. And that's what really gave me the courage to just like leave it all together, even after the death threats and those type things. So of course, naturally, when I let him go, I'm thinking, okay, this is the end. Nothing else is going to happen. I don't have to worry about this. But then when he resurfaces, when I go to college, that's when that fear kind of came back. Like I started to relive a lot of the things that he did to me. And it triggered me, because even like when after me and Rod's situation, when me and Rebel tried to be, I guess you can say, intimate, I was so fidgety, very traumatized, very almost disassociated, because I was used to like things being forceful, and I didn't know what I was doing, because my first experience with someone was literally very aggressive. And I remember the first time me and Rebel tried to be intimate, I started crying. And he was kind of like, why are you crying? And I'm like, because I don't know, you may hurt me. And that was before all of this stuff happened with him and I, with the abuse side from Rebel. And I said, okay, well, he comforted me in that moment. It was just like, well, we don't have to do anything. I want you to be comfortable. I don't want it to be this thing where we're being intimate and you feel like I would harm you in some way, or like cause any like physical harm, emotional, mental harm to you, because that's not my intention. I want it to be something that we share that is meaningful for both of us, and not just something that's thriving off of a traumatic experience you had in the past. And he was like, take all the time you need. I'm not in a rush to do anything. So, and I remember that because like that night in particular that happened, we just kind of laid there and just kind of cuddled the entire time and just talked about life and where we were going and things like that. So I think for me, when I initially got into getting to know Rebel, things he portrayed a totally different picture, pretty much. Like it was different than what Rod approach was. Rod was more aggressive and forceful. And then so Rebel knew my history, knew my past, and he kind of worked his way in through a different approach. And so, of course, naturally, when the abuse started to happen from Rebel, I was blindsided because he had already positioned himself in my heart and through my emotions and all that to where I was completely vulnerable and exposed. I felt exposed at that point. And so I wanted to be sure that you all know how all of this kind of ties into the point to where the phone call happens on the school campus and why I'm so terrified. Because Rod was the type of guy, he didn't have anything to lose. So he didn't mind going to jail for killing someone. And he made that perfectly clear on several occasions. And not only was I fearful for my life, but I was fearful for Rebel's life as well. So there was a lot of things that kind of tied into that. But now that I have kind of told that part of it, now you all kind of know more of an insight as to how this kind of ties into it and how it plays out going forward. And as to why some of the red flags that showed in the first relationship was totally different. The whole story, the plan, I guess his plan, he was like, okay, she's been through it this way, so I want to take a different approach. So he literally pulled on my heartstrings and loved on me and comforted me and did all those things that Rod did not do. And I fell for it. I fell into the trap. And at that point where the abuse started, I had already fallen in too deep into the trap to where I was blind to the fact that I was literally reliving the same situation from my previous encounter that I had with Rod. Now I have a different Rod in Rebel.